Hello, everyone out there in the world of the internet and social media. This is Ken K from At Random, and I am here with a special guest for this particular finally watched video because she's been recommending this film for a while, and we've also been wanting to collab on a video before, so I'm happy that we're finally getting the opportunity. So let me introduce Miss Sasha Munro, or Princess of Darkness. My mistake.
We don't want to step on Elvira's toes. She might get mad.
Exactly. We don't want any copyright infringement claims popping up on this video, so please do not come after us, YouTube or Elvira.
I'm the mistress, I'm the princess. I'm more royalty. Let's put it that way.
Okay, that's fair. But yeah, as you know, I've been doing this video series of, films that I finally get around to watching, and sometimes it's something like Cats, which I am still recovering from, and usually it's something that is required of me to recover from it. I feel like between this, Project Metalbeast,
Metalbeast. I love that flick.
A comic book creator, Sophie Campbell, she she always talked about it on Twitter, and because we follow each other, and I just saw that it was available on Prime, and I was like, oh, I need to finally check this out, and was pleasantly surprised, because I figured it was going to be something schlocky and sort of in that, you fell asleep with your TV on and you woke up at 2 a.m. and it was just playing on Skinamax after the softcore porn.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was prepared for that, but I was not prepared for it to be a legitimately good film.
And it's great. I mean, I remember discovering it, and you got to remember, I grew up sneaking into drive-ins as a kid on military bases and things of that nature. And then we had the mom and pop movie stores, and it got to the point where they just stopped calling my parents, like, just let her rent whatever she wants. But I remember stumbling across that in, I want to say, early 2000 at a Blockbuster where they died.
Yep. But today we are going to talk about this great little piece of Oz-Ploitation, as it would be referred to, known as Razorback, which was, I'm pretty sure if IMDb is correct, the directorial debut of Russell Mulcahy.
That's correct.
Yeah. And if you don't know about Russell Mulcahy, all you need to know is that from 79 to 84, this man did probably close to 100 music videos. He was, even as far as music video directors who went on to become filmmakers, that's a pretty prolific catalog.
Well, that's where a lot of 80s and 90s directors got their start from. I mean, what's his name that did Seven and Alien 3 started out.
David Fincher, yep.
Yeah, he started out doing music videos. I think he even did a few Pepsi commercials, if you want to be honest.
Yeah, they probably also dabbled in commercial work as well. So, I mean, it's just, the 80s is always an interesting time to revisit, especially someone who was born in 1980. So, just turned 40 and trying to wrestle with that.
Hey, I'm 42. You'll get used to
it. I just remember when I turned 30 and it felt like my right knee actively said, I quit this bitch. But
yeah, I feel my back and my shoulder from old injuries all the time. Like when it rains, I feel like the old man on the porch going, oh, my shoulder, rain's coming.
Oh no. But yeah, so we basically have this whole setup where Gregory Harrison is playing an American who goes to Australia after his wife went missing, because she was going over there to to do a documentary, I think, about animal life in the outback in Australia, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Personally, I'd start out with Jake a little bit first, because it kind of brings up how Jake went to trial over claiming there's a giant razorback because his grandkid got killed.
Yeah, and which apparently was inspired by like a real life case.
Yes.
Because also yes, we wanted to preface this by talking about like the whole genre of Oz-Ploitation, because that's sort of a big thing that kind of leads into what would ultimately become Razorback.
Yeah, and with like the whole Oz-Ploitation thing, a lot of people don't understand, because we talked about this briefly before the show, but like people who owned and distributed films and stuff would all occasionally pick up like an Italian film or a Spanish film and run it with the regular big leagues, and it would pick up. And what was interesting was there started to be stuff coming out of Australia in the early 70s to late 70s that were blowing people's minds over here. And it's like, yo, I'm going to put this in my drive-in. And one of the big ones was, of course, Road Warrior, over here known as just Mad Max. Wasn't Mad Max, which is like a whole other thing in and of itself. Because then later it was advertised as Mad Max 2, and the original Mad Max was released, and people were like, well, what's this? This is different than what I saw earlier.
Oh, international releases and all the confusion that comes from it, and just seeing like certain movies that were like filmed, before like the sequel came out before the original did, and all of that confusion that happens more often than you actually would think, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, and you even had movies like Road Games with what's her name, Halloween, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes.
She was in that. Road Games. You had Turkey Shoot. You had a couple other really big ones that came out around that time. And then you had like TV shows, and I can't think of it was The Equalizer or something like that, but somebody who had a big truck, and he was Australian. And I can't think of the name of it. It escapes me.
Oh my God.
Maybe it's not.
Was it the actor who appeared in some Energizer battery commercials?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the show you're talking about. I'm blanking on the name right now. And I think it was called The Road Warrior, but we'll have to check up on that actually.
But yeah, that or The Hammer, because I also had an Australian guy in it too, and he had a big giant gun. So.
Yep. And then to a lesser extent, you had Crocodile Dundee, which, my father swears by those first two movies. But yeah, it's just interesting to see, because it's like every country in the world kind of has their own sort of grindhouse era.
Right.
And it should be no surprise, especially in terms of Australia, that they would have one that was pretty booming back into the late 70s and early 80s. And I'm sure, even if this may seem like a stupid question, I'm sure you've probably seen the documentary Not Quite Hollywood.
Yes.
Okay. Because that definitely went in depth as far as Australian directors and filmmakers trying to make it back in that era. And that was the first time that I saw any reference to Razorback. So that must have been like maybe about 7 or 8 years ago that I saw that documentary.
And it was interesting because up until that documentary, we just called it Oz-Ploitation, and they shortened it to Oz-Ploitation, and it just stuck.
Yeah. I mean, which it definitely rolls off the tongue a little bit better, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But yes, back to Razorback, we do have this whole setup where you have this man who lives out in the outback. He has his farm, and his grandson is killed by a razorback, which is basically what they call the feral pigs or boars out in Australia.
A monstrous one at that.
Yeah, because we'll definitely get into that, because for as little as you see the actual like full beast that is the razorback, they do a good job with it. And I think there was a trivia on IMDb about Spielberg actually calling Russell Mulcahy to compliment him on the creature effects work.
Well, you got to figure like Spielberg complimenting on something like that would be kind of obvious, because when it comes to Jaws, you only see the shark how often?
Yeah.
And because like they even made a documentary, the shark is working, because that was a running gag on set, because 9 times out of 10, the shark was not working.
Yeah.
And you got to admit, like when it comes to horror, the less you see of the creature, the more your imagination is going to fill. And not only that, it's a special effects wet dream, so to speak, to basically show bits and pieces as opposed to the whole thing all at once.
Yeah. Because you do have these scenes in the film where you're just kind of seeing, like, the Razorback's face, and you're seeing it in such quick cuts. And again, this is coming from being a music video director in the 80s, and just sort of having this sort of chaotic atmosphere to everything that's going on that fits as far as the tension of these characters and what experiences they're going through. And I feel like it did a lot of things that I wouldn't have expected it to do. Like, I feel like there are certain points of it where, okay, this is where the Razorback's going to show up and kill someone. And then it doesn't kill those specific people that you think it's going to. And just to, like, preface this, I don't want to go too much into spoilers with this, just because I want people to actually check this out for themselves. Beg your pardon?
It's been 36 years. How can you do a spoiler on something that's 36 years old? That's like showing somebody Transformers the movie and going, I can't tell you, but Optimus Prime, something bad happens to him.
No, I want to give some, no, because we still have to acknowledge, as old as this movie is, it's not going to be one that the general public is already intimately familiar with.
True.
Yeah. So I do want to be sympathetic to them, but yeah, there are probably a lot of people who will specifically watch this video who may already be in the know. I'm more than willing to read.
Prime for you.
It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, you just kind of have this grimy industrial feel to everything that I felt really worked for the film. You have, like, that fear of this creature because, yeah, this is, when we talk about Australia and we talk about the outback, we usually talk about the fact that, yeah, there's 9 times out of 10, the wildlife is liable to kill you if you're not careful.
And your closest neighbor is like 2 miles away.
Yeah, if even that. Because
that's something that this film plays well with, is the themes of isolation. Like, you have the male lead who has to go through one area after he gets ditched by the hunting party, and has got to go all the way to the population, and obviously he has dehydration by then, since all the trippy visuals and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and it feels really surreal in that regard, which I thought was a nice touch, because you have this film where, okay, it's supposed to be a monster film. There's supposed to be these moments of, like, absolute terror and dread. And then you just have this sort of long chunk that is just kind of devoted to Gregory Harrison's character pretty much going on a vision quest almost.
Yep. And I gotta admit, like, the film has so many characters. Like, you've got Dickie Boy and his brother, who are kind of like, but not. They're kind of like side villains, so to speak. You have Jake the hunter. You have the girl that lives off in the fringes.
Yes.
And you have the lead. And there's so many characters, and it still is decently paced. Even though you talk about, like, jump cuts, it's still a decently paced movie. It doesn't feel like you're getting rushed to know these characters.
Yeah. The ending was kind of abrupt, but again, that was kind of fitting in with what we expect from those exploitation grindhouse films anyway, where, okay, we don't need a whole epilogue to sort of wrap things up. Okay, it's like 5 minutes after it's like 5 seconds after the threat has been neutralized, and roll credits.
Right. And I felt interesting on top of all of that is like with the Dicko that I mentioned, and I'm trying to think, I think his brother's name was Benny, I might be wrong, but Dicko and Benny are like the villainous Australians. They still show the people at the pub, the person who gives you his keys to drive out to go check on something, You have them counterbalanced by saying not all Australian people are evil, which is what I kind of like.
Yeah, you do kind of get the sense that, okay, we're going to show you that there are people like this in the outback who are just like the rednecks you want to stay away from. But then you have humble country folk who are just trying to get by. And you have the people that are good, good-spirited, good-natured, and willing to help perfect strangers, to the point that this guy is just giving Carl his keys to, go and like get a lay of the land. It's kind of funny, but you do kind of have that balance, which is definitely important, because I think that when you have the character of Beth, Carl's wife, she's kind of having a rough go of it, pretty much right from the onset.
Oh yeah, and like everybody seems to hate her because she's there to cause trouble, more or less, and that's why they're kind of against her. She's the big city news reporter here to make their town look like BFE, so to speak.
Yeah, but I think that just in watching the film and just seeing where Mulcahy sort of cut his teeth as a filmmaker is interesting, because I've seen plenty of his films. He's got obviously Highlander, which is probably the big one in his filmography for most fans.
Yeah.
And then you have Highlander 2.
Did he do the sequel?
Yes, he did.
Oh.
Yeah. That's the story of Highlander 2 is far more interesting than the film itself. Let's just put it that way.
Wasn't he the pickup director, though? He wasn't the one that it started with.
Yeah, I think that may have been the case, where they actually had to, persuade him to come back mid-production, but I'm not clear on all of the details, so I'll have to look on that. And if anyone who wants to correct us in the comments, please go ahead. Or, no, more specifically, correct me. I'm the one spouting this crap. What am I talking about? But, yeah, just to see, looking at his career once he got into more mainstream films, because you've got to think, he did The Shadow, he did a Resident Evil sequel. There were a bunch of other films that most people might know him for, and just to see where he began. And obviously you have a lot of directors who may have, gone on to be known for dramatic films, or, dramatic thrillers or something like that, and you realize that a lot of them got their start with low-budget horror. So it's always interesting to see the evolution of that filmmaker from their humbler beginnings.
Yeah, indeed. And I will say, with the Resident Evil movie that he did, I enjoyed it because it was that whole desert setting. It felt like Mad Max in the Resident Evil universe. So I think it was the third one. I might be mistaken.
No, that was the third one. And believe me, I'm so confused on the Resident Evil movies, because I've eventually gotten around to seeing all of them except the last one, and I think the second one was the only one I saw in an actual theater.
Well, the third one was the only one that had a different director with Mulcahy. But what really bothers me, if you watch them in order, if you sit down and watch them from the beginning all the way to the end, if you watch them all, you're going to notice that the plots are very confusing. They're going to have stuff that's missing, plot lines that weren't carried over to the next film, etc. And it's all written by Paul W.S. Anderson. It's like, how is it that you screwed up your own continuity? It's not possible.
I asked that of David S. Goyer after Blade Trinity to this very day.
Hey, we got sticky fingers as Blade. Follow it.
Hey, listen. I know, obviously, a lot of people hold Blade as one of those roles that just absolutely belongs to Wesley Snipes, but I was not mad at Blade the series.
It was interesting. Let's just put it that way. And I think it only got, one season and a TV movie.
Yeah.
I don't even think it got a full season.
No, it got a full season, but it ended on a massive cliffhanger.
I will say I like who they picked for the MCU for Blade, but I don't like the fact that they've already used that actor in the same continuity anyway. It's like, how can you have him be Blade when he was Cottonhead or whatever it was called?
Cottonmouth, yeah.
Yeah, Cottonmouth.
Because they're just going to ignore that those shows ever existed, and that's another conversation as far as like my issues with Marvel in general. But getting back to Razorback, we do have this whole thing where, yeah, like a lot of this is atmospheric as far as the film is concerned. There's so much put into, just showing the landscape of the Australian outback, and there's so much to sort of trying to build this idea of what you think Australia is, and trying to at least give it a little bit more nuance. Because you do have, like, yeah, the degenerate redneck characters like Dickie and Benny, but it's just them. Like, you don't see that as, like, a whole group of people, except maybe in the bar scene where everyone's kind of the same level of just sort of
well, here's
rude
the thing.
And
with what happens with Beth, and I'm not going into detail with that, but with what happens with Beth, even though Dicko and Benny kind of led to that, she really wasn't killed by them. She was still, but, like, I don't get how they made the logical jump that Jake was trying to accuse them of that. That's where I got confused. I'm sitting there like, why would Jake think something went wrong? I mean, granted, he found their metal hook, but how did he know it was theirs?
Because he took it. I think he took it to Jake, because Jake was the one who confronted them about that.
Right, but I'm saying, like, with Jake, how did Jake come to that conclusion? It was those two. Are they just bad eggs in the neighborhood, considering how small the neighborhood is?
Probably. Like, when you really think about it, I think you have those small communities where people are able to see right away who, the bad seeds are, or to immediately recognize their trademarks, or if they leave something behind. I can only imagine, but I can kind of see how it might be a little too much of a leap. But you got
Carl getting at him. It's like I don't remember Jake. It's been a while actually, but I don't remember Jake relaying that info to Carl that they might have been involved.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think he did. Now that I think about it.
Like, you find a ring in some stuff and you immediately jump to them without information from Jake. It just doesn't add up.
Yeah. But I mean,
they treated Carl kind of rough in the beginning when they took him hunting, but still.
Dear God. They just left that man to fend for himself and said,
"We'll be back in 4 or 5 hours."
Yeah, I am never letting anyone that I just met take me out to some random spot, especially not in the Australian outback. I feel like even in the early 1980s, you should know enough about Australia to be like, this is not a good idea.
It's how all horror movies started out around then,
Of course, so you kind of have to take those tropes into consideration.
Of course, other movies started out that way too, so maybe he was taking that into consideration.
Perhaps. But, yeah, I think that for what I was hoping to get from the film, I think I got most of what I hoped for. I think there is definitely some silliness factor to it, and you're obviously looking at something that had to work with a very limited budget, but you always want to applaud directors that are able to take those small budgets and really make them work, because you have the whole idea of Razorback, and just being able to, like, see him faintly throughout the film as opposed to just having it be, like, let's just show the full regalia of the monster, as it were. We don't
like two stories kind of merging. You've got the whole thing with Carl and his, I guess, revenge kick, and then you've got the whole thing with Jake and the Razorback, and they just kind of mushed together. You know, you got two movies in one, essentially.
Yes. And as far as, like, those silly moments, I mean, you have, like, you know, the running gag with the guy who's watching TV at his house, and here's the Razorback outside.
The
And
camel
then,
at the
yeah, and then it culminates with, you know, a portion of his house getting pulled off by the Razorback, which doesn't say much for home construction in the outback, if I may say so. If I may put on my, you know, what is the commission for, like, household guidelines for, like, structural integrity of a home?
I don't think they have that in Australia, honestly. I think that's just a good old US of A thing.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But
And you gotta figure, I mean, look what he was trying to catch, and he had it weighted to his house. No wonder half his house got ripped off, you know?
and then, of course, you also have the other running gag, which is Jake just screaming out into the void at random points.
And then Jake's hatred, it's just very much a Captain Ahab, a Quint kind of feel to it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's personal, unlike Quint and unlike Captain Ahab. I mean, granted,
Yeah.
yes, Ahab's kind of personal too, but still.
I mean, well, I don't know if that's a better comparison, but it definitely made me reminisce about the movie Pumpkinhead,
Okay.
which I remember seeing maybe, like, probably about, like, 15, 20 years ago. And again, that's sort of another one where that's its own great story, because it's like Stan Winston, you know, makeup effects guru, you know, rest in peace. Yeah, decided to write and direct his own film. And, you know, you have some people that love the mess out of Pumpkinhead, and then you have others that don't particularly care for it, but still acknowledge that the creature effects were phenomenal.
I just love the whole character of Jake. I just like that whole, I went to get revenge on this thing. And even when the one younger woman is trying to talk logic to him, like, hey, we can try to get a tracker in him, he's kind of like, no, I'm not going there to put a tracker in it. I'm going there to kill it.
Exactly.
Like, I don't want to know where it's going. I want to put it down. And then his whole lecture on boars in general and their nervous system and everything else. He's got, like, a very Quint-esque vibe to him about it.
Yes, yes. And it's just a silly film, but it's still great. You just kind of have these striking visuals, especially when you have the climax in the factory,
Yes.
because that's where you kind of have this great total shift as far as the events that are playing out and the actual color scheme of the film, because it's taking place at night, everything's sort of bathed in blue. It's kind of just that whole sort of Tony Scott at the beginning of his career aesthetic, where everything's just like steel grates with big fans in the background, you know, turning slowly, but there's just this white light that's backlighting everybody, and everyone's sort of silhouetted out.
If I had to say, it kind of reminded me of, what's his name? He also directed Blade, but I know him from Death Machine, which is my favorite.
Steve Norrington.
Yes, it had a definite Steve Norrington kind of feel to it with the color palette. Again, I'm colorblind, so I don't know personally. But
Okay.
Yeah, it had that kind of feel to it. I don't know if it's just because of how edgy the movie was, but it felt interesting to me.
Well, I think when you still have, like, brightness and contrast to work with, like, even if you don't have the actual benefit of seeing all of the colors vividly, you still have this very moody use of shading and lighting that helps to kind of make certain characters more striking, especially when you sort of see the Razorback in passing and you're just sort of seeing, like, the top of its back or something like that. And then when you get up, when you have close-ups on it, it's just so extreme because you just have this close-up of this maw that's just ready to chomp down on you. And it's creepy, it's moody, it's sometimes a little bit claustrophobic, even though you're usually out in these expansive spaces, which I think is very great that they're able to have that irony of having it feel more enclosed than it actually is.
Well, kind of reminds you of John Carpenter's The Thing in that matter, if you sit down and think about it. You're claustrophobic, yes, because you're all stuck indoors, but you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And then, yeah, like I'm looking at a shot now where it's just one of the characters and they've got a gun and a headlamp and there's a... Beg your pardon?
We're hunting ruse.
Yeah, and then they've got a tree with a car just stuck in it.
No reason.
Yeah, for no reason, and then you just have this strong light backlighting everything. So even if you aren't able to process color normally, you still have enough to make for a striking image. And that's what you have in Razorback, is a collection of really striking images where even though the color works for it, you don't need it. Like, in my opinion, like, it would be interesting to see how this would look as a black and white film.
There's few movies that you can watch in black and white. Like The Mist, actually, when it first came out on DVD, actually had a disc where you could watch it in black and white. And I prefer just in black and white.
Yeah, no, I have that. I actually can't find that DVD now because I think, like, maybe around, like, early April, like, when the quarantine lockdown for coronavirus started, I was really... Obviously, I thought to myself, okay, I just lost my job. I have nothing better to do. There was a long period where I was just watching DVDs and Blu-rays. But, yeah, I remember getting The Mist on DVD, and I never got around to watching the black and white version. And now I really want to, and I can't find the damn thing.
I'll see what I can do for you.
Thank you.
I will dig out Dress to Kill, and I will drag out that movie.
Damn right. But yeah, as far as, like, finally getting around to watching Razorback, I was impressed. I was happy with the experience. It did not break my brain, so I'm thankful for that, because I think the last movie I did, which was Kuso, that was definitely one that tested the limits of my cerebral cortex.
For me, when it comes to movies, I just like a film where I can sit down and just enjoy it. And the more obscure it is, to me, is what I like to show people. Like, hey, have you ever seen this? Is it obscure enough? Are you familiar with it? Check it out. That's how I enjoy films. Like, one of my favorite sci-fi films, as silly as it sounds, is Star Crash with Caroline Munro. And I love that movie. But before Shout put it out on Blu-ray and DVD, very few people knew what it was. And I would show people, like, hey, check this out. Hey, watch this. Just because it's dumb fun. You sit down, you check out. Yeah. I don't want to watch you to think.
It's like, it's always funny to, like, one of the things I miss from, being able to go outside and socialize with people in person was I always used to host movie nights, and it would always surprise me, like, because I would feel like the films I would pick would be relatively well known to most people, and I just seemed to have the biggest collection of friends in my social circle who had never seen things like Blade or The Shadow or The Crow. And I'm just thinking to myself, my God, how did your
Shadow was the one that was based on the radio drama.
Say what?
The Shadow was the one that was based on the radio drama.
Yes, that was Mulcahy, and that was definitely, I think for me, that's probably the one that, amongst the films that he's done, is probably my favorite.
Yeah, that film blurs with me with that and The Phantom, because they came out roughly around the same time. So my brain, which is which?
Yeah. I actually just watched The Phantom yesterday.
Oh yeah? Decent?
Yeah. No, well, I had originally seen it when it came out and liked it. And I always liked it, and it was a shame that there wasn't a bigger audience for it, because it was definitely a film that wanted to recapture the essence of those pulp comics from the 30s, and I think it realized that it wasn't going to have enough of a budget to do what Batman had done,
Mm-hmm.
but there was still, like, because you had this boom of everyone wanting to do comic book movies
Yep.
and
You had
getting a lot of lesser known indie comic titles, and of course, in the case of the Phantom, you're thinking to yourself, well, this is a big property that started, predating Batman and Superman, and managed to sustain itself for decades, and it just didn't catch the audience's attention, and maybe that's because of the 30s setting. And I remember I used to watch the cartoon Phantom 2040, which was just, as far as I'm concerned, a brilliant cartoon that a lot of people just weren't here for. It had a great cast, like Ron Perlman and Margot Kidder were in there.
And it had animation that was very akin to, what was it called? Aeon Flux, in my opinion.
Yeah, because Peter Chung, the creator of Aeon Flux, did the character designs. So,
no wonder that.
So when the Phantom came out and they cast Billy Zane, and I was like, "Oh, Billy Zane playing the Phantom? That sounds like that would be pretty good." And yeah, like watching it yesterday again, it holds up for me, and there are a lot of details to it that really kind of help to elevate it as far as being a comic book film, because I think what we have kind of missing as far as the Marvel films that have come out and sort of dominated cinema for the past decade is that there has been a little bit of, I don't know, I guess maybe a homogenization of sorts happening, where everything just sort of bled into something else. And after a certain point, you start to look at the films Marvel was doing, and you're just thinking to yourself, okay, this is just sort of a standard Marvel product. It may be enjoyable, and you can, definitely like what they've done, but there, for me anyway, there's still that acknowledgement that, the directors aren't getting enough freedom to do what they want because they have to be adherent to whatever big event stories that Marvel Studios may want to do later. And I feel like that's to its detriment. And you just have a lot of other factors where I feel like, okay, there's too much of a work for hire mentality as far as those films are concerned. So when you get to things like The Phantom and The Shadow, I feel like, yes, they do kind of bleed together in terms of having the same time period and comparable aesthetic. But you definitely have differences just from the characters themselves and the actors who are playing them, because
I might be blending them because of Defenders of the Earth or whatever it was called from back in the day. That had Flash, Phantom, and I think The Shadow was in that, but I might be mistaken.
No, it was The Shadow.
Okay.
It was The Shadow, Lothor, Mandrake the Magician, and Flash Gordon, because all of those characters were under the same publishing banner.
Okay.
So someone in the 80s, took snorted some, fine Colombian booger sugar and said, we need to make a cartoon series with all of these characters fighting together.
And I think the license for those were just kind of floating around at the time, and that's why they kind of picked it up the way that they did.
Yeah.
Because, again, they were comics that a lot of people didn't know about, and then they just kind of conglomerated them, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. But as far as like Russell McKay's career, he's still very active as a TV director, still does a lot of different films. Most of them just go to straight to DVD, straight to streaming. He did I think the first Scorpion King sequel. That was him. Did a bunch of episodes of Teen Wolf. And he has a film called Xander, which is in pre-production now, but there's not much information on it.
Looks like he did a remake of In Like Flynn.
Yes, I saw that as well. And also, Give 'Em Hell Malone, which has Thomas Jane in it, and is a movie I always wanted to check out. I just never felt like it for some
Yeah.
reason. But like to like actively seek out where I could find and watch it. But it was always something that just off of the title I thought was pretty interesting, and knowing Thomas Jane as an actor, it sounds like a Thomas Jane film that you would expect from
Yeah, Thomas Jane is a great actor, and I miss him as the Punisher. But to me, Dolph Lundgren will always be the Punisher.
him. Why God?
Yeah.
Why do the good people live and the bad people, or why do the bad people live and good people have to die?
And the Captain America with the rubber ears.
Oh God! Oh, mm.
Better than the motorcycle Captain America from the 80s. The big motorcycle helmet.
Oh yeah, the Red Brown TV movies. Oh man, Jesus Christ!
Yeah, I'm showing my age a little bit.
It's fine. We're pretty close together in age, so I've been doing it too this whole time. It's all good, but
We were talking about black and white movies. My mind immediately went little black and white I had as a kid that was hooked up to my Atari 2600 through the rabbit ears.
okay, you're taking it too far now, Sasha. You're taking it too far. But thank you for recommending this film to me and for joining me on this video, because this is the first time I'm doing something like this for the YouTube channel, and who knows, we can most definitely do it again for another film. But
Put together for Leprechaun. I still owe you that, and I still got to do that.
Yeah, the memories of
double feature for both of them. Just knock them out. Get both of the In the Hoods out of the way.
You want me to have to watch the other one? I will do it. I will do it for you.
And if I were to recommend any other movies, I would recommend to you to check out Pig Hunt.
Okay.
It's on a similar theme, and I would also check out Boar. That has Mosley in it. Bill Mosley's in it.
Oh, okay.
About another giant pig.
Mm.
And then, of course, Death Machine. I've not seen Death Machine.
Yes, I definitely need to check out Death Machine.
Let me put it this way. The dude who does Chucky's voice is brilliant in that movie, because I just think they just took away his medication for the day and just let him just be himself. Because he's bouncing off the walls. Like, here's a man of 30 acting like a 15-year-old, and it's great.
Good old Brad Dourif. That man is reliable as all hell, no matter what you put him in.
And he gets to say the line, because he's the one who makes the death scene, but he's the one. I showed him my thing, and it killed him.
Oh, really? Nice.
And a shark attack in a business building is cause of death, and you got to sit there and wonder about that during the movie. You're like, wait, how do you have a shark attack in a building, in a business building? It's a great movie, and it's Norrington, so you'll love it.
Yeah. I think there was another Norrington film I saw. I think that was The Last Day.
Okay.
It had I think that was one with Max Beasley in it. Who lesser known British actor, but he had a few appearances throughout the early aughts in American films like Glitter. Say what?
Isley's in Boar.
Isley or Beasley?
Beasley.
Yeah.
He's in Boar. In fact, he was at the Baltimore Comic-Con. I don't know if you knew that or not, a couple years back.
Oh, I must have missed him.
He's great.
But please take this moment to tell people where they can find you on YouTube and the interwebs. I'll make sure to include a link in the description as well. But I want to give you your moment.
Basically, with YouTube, you just go to youtube.com/C/Sasha the Princess of Darkness. All spell it out. You'll find all my videos there. I promise a new one's coming. The joys of depression and being unemployed at the moment has kind of made it hard for me to produce, but I'm slowly working on a Predator franchise review, so it's coming.
Oh, that'll be a good one.
I think my mind was blown when I found out that Peter Cullen did the voice of the Predator in the original Predator movie.
Oh, yeah, I think I may have heard that.
Yep, all the clicks and growls, that's Peter Cullen, Optimus freaking Prime.
And I know a lot of people hate the Predator, but You know how I'm able to appreciate that film?
How?
By imagining it as the live-action adaptation of the Saturday morning cartoon that was never made for Predator.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Think
And it
about
does
it.
have the dog. And it does have the dog. Oh my goodness. I did not mind the Predator myself.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the Chex Mix of, disparate characters that all have to work together. Some of them are crazier than others. You've got a precocious kid.
The Predator, canonized Predator 2.
Yeah.
Which, in fact, canonized that there's no way that David made the aliens.
Yep. Yeah. That is true.
In fact, in that movie, The Predator, the spear tip from AP is in there, too.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I got all that stuff watching it. How many times I've seen it in theaters and how many times I got to watch it again for the reviews.
Well, I will definitely be looking forward to that. Again, thank you so much for, being on this with me to sort of talk about Razorback because, yeah, that was a fun movie, and there are definitely more that I need to check out. I am going to get around to doing Heat because I want to do it before the end of this year because this year is its 25th anniversary, I believe. And for me to be as much of burgeoning cinephile as I'd like to think I am, it's a massive blind spot that I'd like to correct.
Well, definitely something worth watching. I'm trying to remember exactly who all was in it. My mind keeps going back to Michael Douglas in that one Michael Crichton adaptation. And I know it's not that.
Was that Black Rain?
No, the Michael Crichton, something with Sun.
Oh.
Rising?
No. He was in Disclosure.
Ah, well, there was a movie of Rising Sun. Who was in that?
Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes.
Okay. So you got a movie suggestion for me while you got me on the show or something you want to throw my way to look at? Horror sci-fi, please.
Shit. Because this is obviously your wheelhouse, and I'm trying to think because, I mean, I feel like anything that I would recommend would be just end up being massively pedestrian to any horror fan. To anyone who's a diehard horror fan. But I'm going to say, if you want a good, sort of, not necessarily horror, but, sort of a horror comedy, you've got Mayhem with Steve Yeun.
Okay.
Which also... Oh, you have seen that one?
Have not.
Oh, you have not. Yeah, it's Steve Yeun and Samara Weaving, who I think most people have definitely fallen in love with, especially after Ready or Not. It was actually great to see someone had actually cosplayed as her character from that film in in the wedding dress with the shotgun bandolier and everything. That was nice to see. So I feel like
she's Bill's daughter in the new Bill and Ted movie.
Yes, and in real life, she's Hugo Weaving's niece.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you watched that with Knives Out as a double feature, that'd be pretty fun.
Okay, I love double features. I've seen Knives Out because my mom was completely up the wall about it, so I watched it.
No, I for someone who loved films like Brick and Looper, and I was okay on Brothers Johnson as far as Rian Johnson's films are concerned. Brothers Bloom, my mistake. But as far as his films are concerned, I feel like he's done a great job of establishing himself as a filmmaker. And yeah, I'm sorry, but anyone who hates The Last Jedi,
just go away.
Go away. I don't need to hear anything more from you. But yeah, those two, have you seen Ready or Not yet?
I've seen Ready or Not.
Oh, okay. Have you seen You're Next?
You're Next. Is that the one with all the... Oh, I'm trying to think of it. They got masks or something like that?
Yeah, they have animal masks.
Yes. I've seen that one.
Oh,
Like I
okay.
said, I've watched movies, they blur together. But the one with Steven Yeun that you were talking about, that was a horror movie with some arrow weaving, sounds pretty good.
Yeah, like
I'll watch
that's it's more like funny slasher than it is like outright, horror, but it still works well for me. And yeah, I'm definitely just trying to make use of my Shudder account. So,
Well, if you ever see any interesting sci-fi horror that you think I haven't seen, let me know. Because if it's a hybrid, I'll watch it.
have you seen The Void?
Yes.
Okay. See, this is not gonna work for me. Like, I really have to I have to dig deep and find something and hope to myself, okay, has she seen this yet?
Well, I liked it recently. One of my other fellow reviewers hit me up with this Hammer film that I've never seen. That involved vampires, and I'm like, wait, I've seen all the vampires.
Captain Kronos?
Yes.
I just watched. Are you familiar with Brandon Tenold?
Yes.
I didn't hear you just now.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he just did a video about that that he just posted earlier this week. So
you need to see this. It's got Munro in it, and I'm like, okay, I'm there.
It's
funny. I had a crush on her, and everybody was like, "Oh, wait, no, I just want a beer."
Yeah, but yes, that is it. As always, thank you guys for watching. Please go ahead and subscribe. There are tons of other videos for you to check out. Check out Sasha Munro's videos as well. She's doing some great stuff. And thank you, as always, for the few loyal subscribers that I have been able to amass over the past 2 years now that I've been doing this.
I'll advertise the hell out of this. It'll be fine.
Great.
I'll make sure I'll like, comment, and obey.
All right. But until next time, I'm going to find something else to watch and review, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again sometimes because it was really fun.
Yep, will do.
All right.